something begins to shift, and you can't explain it. People look at you the same, but you feel completely different. Your thoughts feel lighter, your emotions more fluid, and your sense of time begins to stretch and bend. You're no longer reacting to life the way you used to. It's like your entire nervous system has been rewired from the inside out, and even though nothing external has drastically changed, your inner world feels like it's operating on an entirely different bandwidth. That's when you know something radical has happened. You've started vibrating in 5D. But the thing is, no one sends you a certificate. No one congratulates you for leaving the density of 3D behind. Instead, the universe begins to whisper back to you in synchronicities, intuitive hits, and massive internal clarity. If you felt this, even just for a moment, you're already walking between the dimensions. The first unmistakable sign that you're vibrating in 5D is that your emotional reactions are no longer tied to what's happening externally. And in 3D, your emotions are dictated by events. You get good news, you feel good. You lose something, you suffer. But in 5D, you start to realize that emotion is not a reaction, it's a frequency. You can wake up and feel joy without a single reason. You can sit in the middle of chaos and feel unshakable peace. You're no longer dependent on the world to provide you with a reason to feel good, because you've tapped into a dimension where emotional states are generated, not triggered. This is a massive shift, and it changes everything, because now your emotions begin to lead your reality instead of follow it. Let me ask you something that might stop you in your tracks. Are you still waiting for something external to give you permission to feel the way your soul already knows how to feel? Because if so, you're still vibrating in the old paradigm. But when you're in 5D, that old model dissolves. You don't need the perfect relationship, the dream job, or the external validation to feel whole. You are the wholeness, and your outer world begins to mirror that internal truth in the most unexpected, synchronistic, and magical ways.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The second sign is that time starts to bend around you. This is not poetic, it's literal. In 5D, time is no longer linear. It becomes elastic. You begin to notice that certain hours fly by while others stretch. You start thinking of someone, and they text you. You imagine an outcome, and it arrives faster than logic can explain. You're not just moving through time, you're influencing it. You realize that time is not a fixed container, but a frequency that responds to your consciousness. When you're aligned, time collapses. When you're fragmented, time drags. And the more you align with your soul's frequency, the more you experience time as a dance, not a deadline. This is why people in 5D often seem to manifest quickly. It's not because they're lucky, it's because they've exited the time loop of waiting and entered the field of alignment. They're not forcing outcomes. They're tuning their energy and allowing reality to organize around their vibration. Have you ever noticed that the more you let go, the faster things arrive? That's not coincidence. That's dimensional law. In 5D, time serves you, not the other way around. The third sign you're vibrating in 5D is that judgment begins to dissolve. You no longer see things as good or bad, right or wrong. You start to see everything as energy. A contrast becomes clarity. Challenges become codes. You stop labeling people as toxic or enlightened and start recognizing that everyone is playing a role in the field. You may still experience preference, but you no longer carry the emotional charge of polarity. You start to understand that duality isn't truth, it's a training ground. And you've outgrown it. This doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. Because now you can move through life without being hijacked by emotional reactions to things that used to derail you completely. Let me ask you something most people never reflect on deeply enough. How much energy have you wasted judging what your soul actually designed to initiate you? What if the people you resented were actually midwives for your awakening? What if the pain you labeled as unfair was actually the exact pressure needed to awaken your frequency? In 5D, you don't just forgive, you transcend. You recognize that everything carries intelligence, even if it arrives in uncomfortable packaging. And that realization shifts you from victim to visionary in an instant. The fourth unmistakable sign is that your intuition becomes louder than your logic. You begin to feel your truth before you can explain it. You walk into a space and know immediately whether it's aligned. You hear someone speak, and your body tells you everything their words don't. You stop needing evidence to trust your knowing. In fact, you stop waiting altogether. You begin acting from your energetic compass, not your mental map. And the more you trust it, the more precise it becomes. Life starts to feel like a conversation between your soul and the universe, and the dialogue is fluent, fast, and full of magic. This is where the real leap happens. Because once you begin to trust your intuition more than your programming, you start collapsing timelines that don't belong to you. You stop making decisions out of fear. You stop compromising your frequency. You stop entertaining people, jobs, and opportunities that don't feel like truth. And the result? You start living in a version of reality that is so specific to your soul, it's as if you've stepped into a parallel world. Because you have. That's what 5D is, it's not a place. It's a parallel vibrational reality that you access by trusting the voice within. The fifth sign is that you start noticing synchronicities stacking on top of each other. Not random ones, but deeply intelligent, personal, soul-coded signs that remind you the universe is not random, it's responsive. You think of a song and it plays. You ask for a sign and it shows up 3 times in one day. You feel something shift inside you and your outer world rearranges within hours. These are not coincidences. These are confirmations. The 5D field is alive, and it's reflecting you in real time. The more you pay attention, the more it speaks. The more you trust, the more it delivers. You're not just living life, you're in conscious co-creation with the infinite. Let me ask you something that will either overwhelm or awaken you. What if every moment has been trying to speak to you, but your mind was too loud to hear it? What if the universe has been whispering in symbols, numbers, songs, dreams, and sensations, but you didn't believe it was real? In 5D, you don't need belief. You need presence. The signs are not there to convince you. They're there to remind you that you're already connected. You've always been connected. You just forgot. But now, you're remembering. You start to feel like life is orchestrated for your evolution. Even the hard moments feel laced with meaning. You begin to live in a state of awe, not because everything is perfect, but because everything is precise. You see the divine intelligence in the timing, the meeting, the delay, the surprise. You realize the field is interactive. It's not distant. It's not somewhere out there. It's here. It's now. It's you. The sixth unmistakable sign that you're vibrating in 5D is the dissolving of fear-based identity. In 3D, our sense of self is built around survival. Who do I need to be stay safe, be accepted, avoid rejection, or succeed in the system? But in 5D, that entire scaffolding begins to collapse. You stop identifying with the version of yourself that was built for approval, applause, and validation. You begin to recognize that your true self is not something to be constructed, it's something to be remembered. And once you feel that, you can't unfeel it. You can't go back to being a role. You can't go back to performing. You can't keep pretending to be small. This shift doesn't come with a parade. It often comes as an identity crisis. The things that used to excite you don't anymore. The goals you chased start to feel hollow. The roles you played begin to feel like costumes. You start losing interest in who you were and start becoming curious about who you actually are beneath the programming. And here's the twist: it's not about becoming more. It's about letting go of everything you were never meant to carry. The ego doesn't like this. It will fight to preserve the illusion. But your soul is relieved because it finally gets to breathe. Let me ask you something that will cut through every excuse your mind has ever made. Who would you be if you stopped trying to be someone? What would you say if you weren't afraid of being misunderstood? What would you create if failure didn't exist? What would you express if judgment had no weight? That's your 5D self. That's the version of you that already exists in a higher frequency, waiting for your permission to come online. Not when you've healed everything, not when you've figured it all out, but now, in this moment. The seventh unmistakable sign is the collapse of separation. In 3D, we live in the illusion of me versus the world. It's a paradigm of division, me and them, here and there, now and later. But when you begin to vibrate in 5D, you start to feel the interconnectedness of everything. You don't just believe in unity, you feel it. You walk into nature and feel like it's breathing with you. You make eye contact with a stranger and feel a soul recognition deeper than words. You sense the energetic threads connecting experiences across time and space. The illusion of otherness begins to dissolve, and with it goes the need to defend, attack, or compare. This doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerfully compassionate. You understand that the anger in someone else is not personal, it's pain. The judgment is not about you, it's projection. The chaos is not your enemy, it's a frequency looking for coherence. And instead of reacting, you respond from your field. You hold your frequency. You stay grounded in presence. You become a stabilizer in the storm, not because you're avoiding the dark, but because you remember the light. Let me ask you something that only your highest self can answer. Are you still trying to prove your worth in a reality that was built on forgetting it? Because in 5D, there is nothing to prove. There's only something to embody. There's only something to remember. You don't need to argue your truth. You don't need to convince anyone of your value. You simply are, and that I am radiates a frequency that reshapes the field around you without effort, explanation, or defense. When you're living in 5D, you start to notice that words become less necessary. Energy speaks louder. A glance carries more meaning than a paragraph. A moment of silence becomes a download. You start communicating with the universe through feelings, symbols, synchronicities, and deep inner knowing. You stop searching for signs and start becoming the signal. You walk into rooms and shift the frequency just by existing. You don't need to control the conversation. Your presence does the work. You don't need to defend your path. Your embodiment answers questions no one else can articulate. And here's where it gets truly life-changing. In 5D, your healing is no longer just yours. Your frequency becomes medicine. Your authenticity becomes activation. Your stillness becomes transmission. People come into your field and remember who they are not because you said the right thing, but because you are the right vibration. You don't need to preach. You don't need to teach. You simply need to be. And that being ripples out in ways your mind will never fully comprehend, but your soul has always known. Let me ask you something that goes beyond any affirmation you've ever repeated. Are you ready to stop doing your way into awakening and start being your way into activation? Because 5D isn't a goal, it's a frequency. And it's not reserved for the perfect, the enlightened, or the spiritually elite. It's for the willing, the open, the ones who are ready to surrender the illusion and embody the truth. The ones who are done waiting for permission and ready to transmit the impossible. You begin to see your past differently in 5D. Not as a series of mistakes, but as a perfectly coded sequence of initiations. Every heartbreak was a portal. Every delay was protection. Every failure was a dismantling of a frequency that couldn't carry your next level. You stop resenting your journey and start revering it. You bless the chaos that cracked your identity. You thank the silence that taught you to listen. You honor the darkness that refined your light. And in doing so, you become whole. Not because you fixed yourself, but because you remembered you were never broken. This is the true essence of 5D: wholeness, coherence, clarity, connection. And once you taste it, even for a moment, your entire nervous system shifts. Your breath deepens, your pace slows, your intuition sharpens. You become allergic to inauthenticity. You can't tolerate shallow conversations, performative living, or anything that distorts your field. Not because you're judgmental, but because your soul has upgraded its standards. You're no longer vibrating at the level of survival. You're vibrating at the level of sovereignty. And the final gift of this state: you stop trying to escape the world and start becoming the version of you who was sent here to change it. Not through force, but through frequency. Not through noise, but through embodied knowing. Not by climbing ladders, but by collapsing illusions. And you realize that your presence on this planet, in this moment, is not random. It's a precise move in the cosmic game. You are not here to chase light. You are here to be the light in a world that forgot how to feel it. When you are fully vibrating in 5D, you stop looking for signs and start realizing that you are the sign. Your life becomes the confirmation. Your energy becomes the evidence. You no longer ask, "Am I awake?" Because every breath you take is a living, breathing yes. You feel it in your bones, in the way you no longer compromise your truth to be accepted. You feel it in your heart, in the way you open without fear. You feel it in your vision, in the way you see possibilities where others only see problems. And above all, you feel it in your soul, in the way you've come home to yourself not as an idea, but as a frequency that now governs every part of your existence. At this level, your definition of success completely changes. You stop measuring your worth by external metrics, money, titles, validation. You start measuring your life by the depth of your peace, the integrity of your choices, the clarity of your intuition, and the alignment of your energy. You recognize that the world's version of success was designed to keep you in a loop of proving, striving, and never arriving. But in 5D, the arrival is internal. It's the moment you realize that nothing outside of you can give you what you already are. You are no longer reaching, you are radiating. You're no longer seeking, you're remembering. And that memory is where your true power lives. Let me ask you something so intimate. Your ego might try to look away. Are you still chasing something that your higher self has already declared complete? Because when you're vibrating in 5D, you stop chasing and you start choosing. You choose timelines. You choose thought patterns. You choose emotional states. You choose your multidimensional identity, not based on logic, but on energetic resonance. You feel into your future self and begin to move as them now. You collapse the illusion of waiting. You collapse the illusion of lack. You collapse the illusion of linear time. And what's left is a field where your soul doesn't just survive, it creates. Another shift that becomes obvious in 5D is the way you relate to uncertainty. In 3D, uncertainty is terrifying. It's a threat to your plans, your safety, your identity. But in 5D, uncertainty becomes sacred space. It's not a void to avoid, it's a canvas to create on. You stop resisting the unknown. You start partnering with it. You stop needing control and start cultivating trust. You begin to realize that the unknown is not the absence of answers, it's the presence of higher intelligence that hasn't yet been revealed. And that shift changes everything. Your fear of the future dissolves. Your anxiety about outcomes softens. You start walking in faith, not because you figured it all out, but because you know who you are in the field of not knowing. And here's the paradox: the more you trust the unknown, the more precise your life becomes. The more you release control, the more aligned your path becomes. The more you surrender, the more power you embody. Because surrender in 5D isn't weakness, it's mastery. You're no longer fighting the current, you are the current. You're no longer trying to make things happen, you're letting them unfold through your alignment. And that's why those who vibrate in 5D often appear to live in flow. It's not because their life is perfect. It's because their relationship to life is coherent. Let me ask you something that could save you years of struggle. What if the clarity you've been begging for only arrives when you stop trying to control the outcome and start tuning your energy to the frequency of trust? Because clarity is not a reward for overthinking. It's the natural result of energetic alignment. And when you realize that, you stop trying to figure everything out. You start feeling your way forward. You stop asking others for permission. You start listening to your own field. You begin to trust the silence between the thoughts, the pause before the decision, the stillness after the release. You also begin to experience a shift in your physical body. The body becomes more than a vessel, it becomes a receiver. You start to sense energy before words. You feel when someone is out of alignment before they speak. You begin eating differently, moving differently, resting differently, not because someone told you to, but because your body is communicating with you in a new language. You become more sensitive, but also more sovereign. You can feel everything and still choose what to engage with. You're no longer reacting to every sensation. You're interpreting it, transmuting it, and even using it to direct your decisions. Your body becomes a sacred interface, not a prison. At this level, your relationships evolve dramatically. You no longer tolerate anything that fragments your field. You stop settling for surface-level connections. You stop playing roles to make others comfortable. You don't need to be liked, you need to be aligned. And that means some people will disappear. Some will drift away. Some will lash out. But instead of shrinking to keep them close, you expand into your truth and let the resonance do the sorting. Your tribe is not found through effort. It's revealed through embodiment. And the more you embody your frequency, the easier it is for others to recognize you not through logic, but through soul memory. Let me ask you something with no judgment, only truth. Are you still performing versions of yourself to maintain expired relationships that your higher self has already outgrown? Because in 5D, there is no more pretending, only presence, only truth, only the raw, radiant light of your actual essence, and those who are meant to walk with you will recognize it instantly. They won't need convincing. They'll feel it. And those who don't, let them go with grace. Because your evolution is not rejection, it's redirection toward your soul's next chapter. Your creativity also begins to surge. Not just creatively as in art, but as in creation itself. You start to birth ideas, projects, conversations, and experiences from a space that feels limitless. You stop asking, what should I make? And start asking, what wants to come through me? You realize you're not the source, you're the channel. And when you clear your field of judgment, fear, and resistance, the channel opens wide. Low states become your norm. Inspiration becomes your fuel. You create not to prove anything, but to participate in the cosmic dance of becoming. And finally, perhaps the most unmistakable sign that you're vibrating in 5D is this. You begin to live in deep, unshakable inner peace that doesn't depend on outer conditions. You don't need everything to go right to feel right. You don't need everything to be certain to feel safe. You carry peace as a frequency, not as a reward. And that peace is not passive. It's radiant. It's magnetic. It's the kind of peace that walks into a room and shifts the entire vibration without saying a word. It's the kind of peace that allows you to face storms without being moved. It's the kind of peace that only comes when you remember who you are, not as a personality, but as a presence. So now ask yourself one final question, not from your mind, but from your field. Am I ready to stop visiting 5D and start living from it? Because you are already there. The signs are already happening. The frequency has already found you. Now it's time to stabilize it, to embody it, to walk it. Not someday. Now.